Locator, Ben Reed. Address, Cherry Street, Hull, Illinois, 62343. Telephone number, 217-432-5596. Birth date, September 6, 1907. Birthplace, Hull, Illinois. Interviewer, Vanessa Gottman. Date and place of interview, December 6, 1992, Ben Reed's house.
And
Okay. This is on your family background.
mm-hmm.
Where were your parents born?
Here in Hull.
Okay. If
It is in the country around there. None of them were born right in Hull.
Okay. What were your parents' occupations?
Farmer.
Did the Depression affect their jobs?
Not one bit.
What level of education did your parents complete?
My mother completed the 8th grade. My dad, I think, got through the 6th grade.
How would you describe your home during the Depression?
I had the finest home that anyone ever lived in.
Was it owned by your parents?
Yes, it was a farm home.
Did your neighborhood change during the Depression?
Yes, some of them moved out. Not many, I think one or two is all. It was a pretty settled place. I mean, people had lived here a long while. Their parents had lived.
Did like your neighbors help you out and help each other?
Absolutely. We helped one another.
How many brothers and sisters lived at home during the Depression?
My dear, during the Depression, there was only one boy at home. The rest of us were out and married.
Were they employed at school in federal?
One was going to school, and the other was working at a place in Quincy.
Did anyone else live with your family during this time period?
Had hard hands all the time. Different hard hands.
This is personal information. What level of education did you complete?
I have a master's degree in science from the University of Michigan.
Oh, that's a good. Did you have a job during the Depression?
I sure did.
You were one of the lucky ones.
I was lucky and I was happy with it.
Did your money contribute to help support the family?
What's this?
Did your money contribute to help support the family?
You mean my own family? I supported my own family. See, I was married.
When do you remember first being aware of the Depression?
About January the 20th, 1930 or 31. And the reason I became aware of it, the new president took office, which was Roosevelt. Before that was Hoover. He took office, and the first day he took office, he closed all banks. All banks were closed. If you didn't have any money in your pocket, you didn't have any money to spend.
Okay. What are 2 or 3 of the most important world events that you remember happening during the 1930s?
I don't remember anything important, honey.
The election was probably...
The election was a big thing. That just happened, and it was quite a upset. It was Hoover before that, and he wasn't very popular. And people out of work, and very much like they are now, not as badly. And that was about the most important thing.
Can you recall for me what a typical day was like and what you did to help your family cope with the conditions of the Depression?
Well, I told you before, you're talking about me personally now. I had a job in the Pittsfield Junior High School at Pittsfield. I was making, at that time, $120 a month. Now, that was a pretty fair salary. And that money was used to keep my family. And we didn't have a bit of trouble. I mean, we weren't used to a lot of money. We never had much money. And as far as we were concerned, the Depression was just like any other time, because I had a job. Now, if I hadn't had a job, been different. But I had a job, and we had sufficient money, not to buy new cars every year, but to eat. And we had one car, well, we did have an old Ford T model, that was all. But we were the happiest people that ever lived. I had a wife. A little later on, I had another girl, 2 girls. And I wouldn't want any more in life.
Okay.
These are my two girls up here.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Are they both married?
Yes, both married, and I have some grandchildren, and they have grandchildren. They have children. I'm a great grandpa. You're talking to an old man.
Like, what did you guys do for entertainment?
At this time, I read. That's about all I did with eating. We lived in the country. No, I didn't. I lived in town. At this time in Pittsfield. And I read. I was coach of all sports in junior high school. And I spent hours and hours with the kids on that. I also was a scoutmaster with 40 scouts. So that, in addition to a regular assignment in school, I didn't have much time to do anything but read and do those things.
Mm-hmm. Was the depression the cause of someone's death?
Death?
Anyone in your
Not
town?
that I knew in our family, no.
How was the school where you went?
How was what?
The school.
How was the school? It was fine.
They weren't. Was there any extra activities like basketball?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, I coached all the sports. We had all the activities then that you have now. There was nothing else. Well, we had no television. And with eating, you read or listened to radio. And you went to all the activities in school. That's the only place you had to go.
Was there any habits that you or your parents had to give up because of the depression? Smoke?
I'm sure there was some who maybe quit smoking or had to smoke less.
Yeah.
I didn't smoke because it didn't bother me. My kids didn't smoke. My wife didn't smoke.
Were you able to keep any kind of pets?
My pets? Oh, yeah, I always had a dog. I always had a bird dog because I liked to hunt.
Did you like to hunt a lot?
Oh, yes, I hunted a lot.
Coons?
Quail.
Deer and stuff?
I was a quail hunter. Quail hunter and rabbit hunter.
Explain how the depression changed the number of gifts you got for Christmas and your family. How they...
Honey, we never got much at Christmas time. We were always pretty poor. And most of the people in this community didn't have much to give or to buy. And about the only gifts that we ever got was one gift for each kid. And that was all. We couldn't afford any more than that.
Okay.
And they were just as proud of that gift and so anxious. Now people today get gifts every time they go to town.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Could you explain how some of your holidays were celebrated?
Gosh, you're going back a long ways. I played baseball a lot when I was in Pittsfield, and most of our holidays I played baseball. I played on the team there. That was after I was married. It was a town team, and played baseball on those holidays. That's about it.
If you went to church, where was it and what activities did you participate in?
I went to the Methodist, and I was just a church goer, and that's it. I didn't teach Sunday school or anything. See, I was a scoutmaster. I had 40 kids. I coached all the sports. I didn't have much more time for anything. I put in probably 50, 60 hours a week, my dear.
Okay. Let's see. Was there any one particular family that stood out during the Depression? Who and why?
What's this now again?
Was there any one particular family that stood out during the Depression? Who and why?
I don't remember. I would say my parents probably did. They were always interested in their kids and did everything they could to help them out.
Were you able to have any special treats like cake or ice cream or anything like that?
Sure we did. We weren't... My wife was a great cook. She could take one potato and make a banquet out of it. sure, she baked all the time. Did her own washing and everything. I mean, we had no outside expense hardly.
That was good for you, wasn't it?
Sure it was.
Do you have any stories about your family that happened during the Depression that you'd like to tell me?
I can't think of any special story. We were just an average family, and I'll think of some tomorrow. It always happens.
Let's see. Electricity. My teacher, she told me about one family that hooked a wire to a light thing and ran it onto their washer and washed they had an electric washer. And she said at night she could hear the washer running.
Is that right?
That's what she told us. Let me see here.
People busy. They built these dams over here. See, government furnished labor there for that, and it helped a lot of people didn't have jobs, you know. The Hannibal High School was built by government labor during the Depression years. And there was, I'm sure, a lot of buildings, maybe here in Pittsfield, were built by the labor at that time. So the government helped out as much as they could.
Do you ever remember seeing a bread line?
I don't remember. I'm sure there might have been, but I know I never thought of a bread line. Never even thought of one. We had as much to eat then. Well, as I said, I was the happiest I ever was in my life. And honey, you're going to find out, the older you get, there's other things besides money, making money in life. You're going to find out that the most important thing in any family is love and affection and respect. That's more important than all the jobs and all the money that you can get. And you realize it as you get older. Now, I've lost track of my whole family. But, gee, you know, you just get some back for a while would be very helpful. It's much more important than going out here and making $1 million.
Okay, have you ever been to the museum that she runs up here?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty neat, ain't it?
Yeah, it's a nice museum. They've done a lot of work there.
Oh, she also wanted me to ask you if you had any papers or documents
Honey,
or pictures.
I moved to town about 3 years ago. After living I lived in Michigan for 17 years. I lived here in Pittsfield for 12, and I farmed 31. That's where I lived on the farm most of my life. And when I moved off the farm, I didn't bring a lot of stuff with me. I got rid of it. I mean, stuff piles up, and now I wished I had saved some of that stuff, but I didn't save anything.
Was there any families that did not have a shelter or home?
Honey, if we'd had a family in our community with a shelter or home, we'd all be in there to help. See, we know one another here pretty well. It's different than living in the city. In the city, I'm sure. Well, I lived in Ann Arbor for 17 years, and I didn't get acquainted with my next-door neighbor. But here in this county, you know your neighbors. If they need help, you're going to help them. And that's what happens. That's the way it should be.
Did you have any schoolmates that did not have the necessary supplies?
Let's say 60 years ago, none of us had a lot. none of us had a lot, but we always had enough to get by. We had plenty of food. We had clothes that were just common clothes, nothing special. And that's all we wanted. That's all we'd ever had. So why should it be any different?
I just had a new one. Could you explain the way your house was? How many rooms?
Oh, yeah. There was no farmhouse, no basement, no toilet, no water. I'm speaking about when I was younger, honey, not when I was in Pittsfield, but that's when I was younger. And we had a cook stove and a heating stove. No heat at all upstairs. It was a 5-room house, and my wife, or my mother and dad and 3 kids lived there. That is when I was younger. And it was a place to live, but it's nothing special. No, nothing special at all, just a place to live. And we didn't mind it. I don't remember ever getting cold. Just had a heating stove. I can remember sleeping upstairs and snow coming in on me. I can remember the comforts getting frozen. But I had a lot of feathers. What do you call them? What kind of mattress? Feather mattresses. Lots of quilts. So I didn't get cold. As long as I got my nose out, that's all I wanted. Now you're interested in what things cost and what you had to pay for. Well, milk was $0.05 a quart. Steak was 15 cents a pound. Eggs were 10 cents a dozen. And bread was 5 cents a loaf. That's just a few samples of the things it cost us. Yes, I know George Johnson. We went to school together. Started when we were in the 1st grade. I knew him since he was in the 1st grade, went through high school with him.
My friend, he interviewed George Johnson for this.
He did.
And I listened to it at school today.
That's good.
How many days a week did you go to school?
5.
5?
And we always went from 9 to 4.
9 to 4.
That's where we always went. And we walked every day to country school. But you asked me for what I was doing during the Depression years. Well, I lived in Pittsfield then, see. I didn't tell you about this younger days. I lived in Pittsfield. Of course, I didn't do all those things. But we walked to school every day. Never missed a day. Never thought of missing.
You like school?
I love school. I love school. I ought to, as many years as I went. I taught 31 years.
During the Depression, did the prices of food go up?
No, honey, it went down. The price of food went down because you didn't have any money to buy it.
To me, I thought it was like when nobody had any jobs or anything like that.
And they had no money to buy it. No, back during the Depression years, see, my dad lost his farm that he had bought because the price of food was so low. He bought the farm at a price up here, and the Depression came. Corn became 15 cents a bushel. Now think of that. Wheat 50 cents a bushel. Hogs, $0.05 a pound. Now try to pay off a farmer, you paid $80 for an acre, with that kind of price, see? And he couldn't do it. He lost it.
I read a story the other day that said that people lost their farms a lot because of the Depression.
That's it.
Prices.
And the prices.
And they couldn't afford to keep planting corn and stuff.
That's right. And that's what happened then. That's how he lost his farm. You couldn't pay a farm off with 15-cent corn. Today it's $2 and something. Wheat's $4 and something. Hogs are $43 and something. So you see, that's quite a difference.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. And that was a very enjoyable experience. And I think many people enjoy listening to it later, whenever they do papers or something like that on this subject.